Folks, welcome aboard. I'm excited to be here with Dr. William Schnoebelen of With One Accord Ministries. And welcome. Today is Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. Brother William, would you like to open us up in prayer?
Yeah, we'll try it again. Father God, in Yeshua's mighty name, we do come before your throne. We thank you for Shannon, for all of his technical expertise, and for being willing to do this show for so many years. And we do ask you to please bless this time. We pray you would bless and protect our families, Shannon's precious family and my precious family, from any kind of counterattack before, during, or after the recording of this video, audio, whatever. And Father, we pray that you would really anoint this time, help me to speak what you want me to speak and to say what you want me to say. Father, we know we're going to talk about some kind of evil stuff here, but we want people to know that this is for the glory of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, and that we are trying to follow the mandate of Ephesians 5:11 and expose the unfruitful works of darkness and reprove them. So, Father, as we do this, we ask your blessing and your protection upon us all, and we give this time to you in the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
I say amen to that. Brother William, how you been since last time?
Well, it's been a pretty rough fall and, spring and summer. Lots of challenges with health, challenging my sleep to the point that I'm only getting like about 4 or 5 hours of sleep most night, but it does give me more time to pray. So,
oh my goodness.
But, in that sense, the devil's kind of shooting himself in the foot, which he often does. But, summer is always rough financially. This July was pretty bad, but we're hanging in there. And we are almost halfway through putting up our new website, because I don't know if you knew this or not, but the old website took down all of our prayers.
Oh, no.
All of our free materials, we had you could download our deliverance prayers and all this other stuff. And for some weird reason, they just decided to take all of that down. So, oddly enough, the only way people can access that stuff on our current website is if they go to the mobile app on their smartphone.
Okay.
But, that's not really satisfactory, because if you want to download a prayer and print it, it just makes it that much more difficult.
Right.
So we're going on to a new website. But that's just one more thing, is people are saying, oh, Brother Bill, where's the prayers? Where are the teachings? Because we got, probably over 100 different free things that people can download. So it's not been a good situation, but we're trying to get a handle on it.
Well, I'm glad you're rebuilding the website, and it'll be like the $6 million man, better, stronger, faster than ever before.
Oh boy, that takes you back a few decades.
Hey,
but
we've been around a while, but that's okay. That was a good time to live, and so is today.
Yes. Because no matter when you live, Yeshua's on the throne. Hallelujah. Just got to remember that.
Well, if God sits outside of space and time, what is time to him look like? So, shoot. I just turned 55 in November. I'll be 56 soon. And, shoot. What is that? What is our life to the Lord? I mean, a day to the Lord is 1,000 years to man.
Yeah.
We've been here for like a drop in the ocean, relatively speaking, compared to eternity. So, hey, don't feel old. I say to myself,
I don't.
We're babies. You're like a young fried chicken for Jesus. Well, kosher chicken. Brother William, it's great to have you back. And where we left off is, I want to tell you, compliment you. I really like those YouTube interviews you did. Now, one of them got up to, 4 million hits so far?
I believe so, yeah.
Wow. They were good. Oh, my goodness. Has that opened the door for other interviews since that one?
Well, yeah, and that's what I was saying. I mean, when we were struggling with this stuff, I mean, yeah, I've probably gotten into 3 or 4 different, at least, probably more than that, different podcasts, and we're still working on a couple of things to set up the scheduling on it. But yeah, it's been it's been a blessing because we've gotten a lot of people that are now aware of our ministry, because it's always they've like, and oh, that's the other fun thing. Google has been after us. They fixed it, so now we're still struggling with this. It's been this way for like 6 weeks. We send, my beloved wife Mary puts together these wonderful emails and sends them out a couple times a week. And if you happen to be a Gmail user, Gmail sends them into, not only does it send it into spam, but it puts this big red block on it at the top saying this has been proven to be phishing or dangerous links, or they even say we're connected to the dark web.
Oh my goodness! Can you
believe that?
That's terrible.
And every time they have a thing in Gmail where you go into your spam folder and you click on it and it says, is this not spam? And I always click that, but it don't matter. They still keep sending it to spam. So we use iContact for our email, mailings, and they've been working with us, but Google keeps stepping on it. So we're telling our people, and unfortunately, Mary has worked so hard on this. She looked at like over half of the people on our email list are Gmail, just because it's so pervasive. It's free and so it's been kind of challenging in that regard too, because we now have, I think, close to 67,000 people subscribing to our YouTube channel, and yet typically if we get 8,000 or 9,000 views, that's a good week.
Yes.
So we know they're, shadow banning or doing, and I know we're not the only ones. I mean, there's several people I have to keep re-following, and they won't send me their emails, even though I'm subscribed for, YouTube videos. So we're just fighting against this antichrist technological garbage. I mean, it's great to have the internet, but it's too bad we've got these antichrist giant companies like Meta and Google that are kind of lording it over everybody, kind of like Saruman in the Lord of the Rings. So
here's
we're doing our best.
You might want to try. Of course, I have been through this so many times with YouTube. I'm on channel 9 right now. The other 8 are gone.
Yeah.
Okay, so I sent one email out, pray for President Trump, back during the last election. And in 24 hours, MailChimp, my mailing service, killed my account. No warning.
Wow.
Constant Contact deleted me too. So what do? I had nothing for a mailing list. I had to start over. And then I found a company called Substack. A friend told me about it, Michael Basham. Thank you, Michael. It's called Substack.com. It's free.
I've heard of them, yeah.
And so I've been testing them now for 2 years. I can tell you could send as many emails as you want on a daily basis to your list. No problem. Any content you want. No censorship whatsoever. The stuff that you can't put out through other systems, no problem with them. And it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I want you to check them out. Now, what you'd have to do, if you find out you can't salvage your current list, is some way get a message out to everybody to move over. And then when they opt in to your Substack, you could have like withoneaccord.substack.com. It's free. And no pricing involved. And it's great. So that's what I use. And I've had nothing but success with it. And no censorship, because that's really the problem out there. As you mentioned, Google and Meta, on any given day, they may put you in Facebook jail.
Yeah. So far, I mean, praise God, we have not had any problem with iContact, our email thing. But
Good.
I know it's always a possibility, so I will definitely look into that.
Absolutely. And perhaps you just try it and see if maybe the issue is eye contact with the Gmail. I don't know. But I'm glad you told me that, because I wasn't even getting your emails. I wasn't aware you were putting out a weekly list. How do I get on the list?
Yeah, well, you're on our list.
Well, I'm not getting anything from you.
Well, check your spam folder.
I do. Every day.
Huh.
So you know what I need to do is I need to sign up again. How do I or others sign up to your list?
Well, that's the other problem is that the company that currently hosts our website, which I'm not going to name,
okay,
but they, I lost what I was going to say.
Have they
basically they ended up telling us, that we can't do that, and they keep putting these roadblocks in our way.
Oh my goodness!
And so that's why we're moving to a new web provider.
Oh, good for you. Get out of there. I know one horror story of a friend you and I both know, if I mention her name, and her webmaster held her own site hostage. So wow. I learned something a long time ago. Control your own hosting and don't let anybody register your domain name for what it's worth out there.
Right. Yes.
Because the devil will activate in some of these people and they'll hold your whole site hostage. Well, okay, so folks,
yeah, I mean, it's a problem because, of course, most of these companies are not Christian. They don't have any kind of sense of the kind of war that's going on in the spiritual realm. That's why the webmaster we've got now is a very solid Christian woman.
Oh, good.
And so far it's going really well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. We're just doing a little bit of housekeeping here in our conversation, folks. We haven't talked in a while. Brother William and I'm glad to get some of these updates, and thank you for keeping me in the loop there, because I want to get back on your mailing list. I'm not getting anything.
Well, just email on the Gmail email that I have. Just send me your email, and we will definitely put you back on the list, because that's Perfect. Bizarre, because I know you're on the email list, but they're probably fiddling with it.
Okay. So if you email me directly, I get those, but I don't get it from your mailing list. So let's do that. Thank you for that heads up. Hey, by the way, if you get an invite from a big YouTuber called the Concrete Podcast, or even Joe Rogan, you need to take those.
Well, I know Joe Rogan is enormous.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, he's
brother, you're en route to get on Joe Rogan's show. I have no doubt in my mind, with some that you've already done, just as soon as his people see it. He has some guests over there. They've got none that can compare to your story. And you've got the real McCoy. You've got an amazing story.
Yeah.
So,
well,
if you're out there too,
by the grace of God, we're trying to do that, but I haven't heard from Joe yet.
Folks, send Joe Rogan's admin. You can suggest guest. A recommendation to get Brother William Schnoebelen on, and also we need to get you on Coast to Coast with the dude who replaced Art Bell. His name escaped me for a moment. You know who Coast to Coast AM is?
Not anymore, no. Oddly enough, I was on years ago. I think there was a woman for a while who had taken over.
Oh, really?
And oddly enough, she was a witch.
Oh,
but
wow.
She invited me on.
Wow.
And we had like a 2-hour conversation, in the middle of the night, which is not my best time. I'm very much a morning person.
I'm a night owl.
But it went surprisingly well. She was very respectful. And, we had a really good, intelligent conversation. She wasn't one of these left-wing loons that started, frothing at the mouth and cursing me or anything.
Well, that's amazing. When did you actually launch into ministry? How long after you got saved did you feel the calling?
Well, basically, I kind of use it's going to be an anniversary, because the first time I really got into ministry was in 1986. I gave a huge talk in Salt Lake City at a big conference for people that are trying to bring people out of Mormonism with Ed Decker. And that's what started it all. So we're coming up on, I guess that's 40 years.
Wow.
And I was saved in 84, and I hit the ground running in 86. And then I went out, worked with Ed Decker in 87 through 92. Yes. And then we started with One Accord.
Well, I came across you probably about 92 with your book, Lucifer Dethroned. I picked it up at the Ark and the Dove Christian bookstore, and I would drop by there before I'd go to my security job on the weekends, grab me something to read, because I didn't have much to do once I got to the job site. So I figured I'm going to put it to use reading, and I came across your book, and it just was amazing. And so delighted to have Dr. William Schnoebelen on today, wherever you're tuning in from. It's a live show, Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. Brother William, where would you like to go today? The mic is yours.
Well, okay. Well, I'll tell you. I think, if your audience is familiar with us at all, we have been pretty much trying to warn, sounding off the shofar for nearly 40 years about the dangers of Mormonism and the dangers of the Vatican. And we're seeing now, and this is what I want to talk about, it's like there's this unholy union that has happened, going on about 6 years now, between the LDS church hierarchy and the Pope. They're cozying up to one another, which is interesting because I remember when I was in the Mormon church, they would always describe the Roman Catholic Church as being the great and abominable whore of all the earth. Well, which you hear that a lot among also, fundamentalist Bible-believing Christians. And they would just, and of course the message that was supposedly given to Joseph Smith when he had this alleged encounter with God the Father and God the Son in this grove in the country near Palmyra, New York, they said, anyway, these two supposed divine beings told Joseph Smith that all the religions are false, that they have the power of God. They have a form of godliness, but deny the power thereof. And that Joseph Smith is supposed to start his own church. And that was the beginning of Mormonism. And so, of course, he supposedly, all of this is probably nonsense, but he claimed that this angel gave him these golden plates and told the story of what they've come to call another testament of Jesus Christ. That's the Book of Mormon, that Jesus was in the New World, and the New World was populated with partly with descendants of Israelites. And I don't want to get into a whole thing about it, but that was the beginning of it. And so there's been this long animosity between the Mormon Church and the Vatican. And for some reason, all of a sudden, they're buddies. So, what I want to emphasize up front, and I always try to tell people this, both the Mormons as a general population and the Catholics are good people. They're trying to, live their lives according to what they believe, for the most part. And, so it's a shame that they're part of the dangerous cults that are full of damnable heresies. But here's the problem. It's not just theologically dangerous. It is emotionally and physically dangerous. Let me explain. Both of these institutions, the Mormons and the Vatican, they want to prey on your children. They have amassed enormous political power. Shannon, you have no idea how much power the Mormon Church has in the government.
Wow.
You want to talk about the deep state. Well, those swamp creatures in the deep state, I bet more than half of them are Mormons. And, the other thing is they're deeply involved with the intelligence system.
Oh, yes.
both here and elsewhere.
CIA, for sure.
Yeah, because the CIA used to probably still do, love to recruit former Mormon missionaries.
I can
because
confirm that.
they know that those young men and
we were just talking about the fact of the proliferation of the Mormon church in government. They got a power grip. Let me tell you a true story. It's a short story, so keep your place.
Sure.
Years ago, remember I told you I used to do security part-time?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I worked for the U.S. government as a civilian full-time, but I didn't make enough money, so I took a side job. And I worked out in Northern Virginia over at this high-tech internet company back in the day. It was about 92, 93. I took your book in, by the way, Lucifer Dethroned. And there was a guy who I was relieving. He asked to borrow this book. And, man, I almost didn't get it back from him. And when I did, he had markup everywhere. And I'm like, my goodness, brother, you need to buy me a new book. You've got markup all over this thing. Well, he was an interesting guy because he was a Mormon and a Freemason. And lo and behold, he went to a Mormon church. What do they call those? A Mormon temple?
Well, it's a ward.
Okay.
W-A-R-D. And then if he's worthy enough, he can go to the temple.
Okay. Get a load of this. Hey.
Okay, we're back on.
I just bind every demonic force in the mighty name of Yeshua, Mashiach. Coming against us, we plead the blood of Yeshua over this program and rebuke every evil spirit in Yeshua's name that is trying to thwart this program.
Amen. Yes.
So, turns out this guy, he goes to his Mormon church with a man who's a director of personnel over the CIA.
Oh.
And I had been with the government about almost 6.5 years by the time I left. But before I did, I thought, I'm bored over here. I think I would like to try something different. And I thought my dream job would be kind of get on with the CIA and maybe I'd be like a 007. But I didn't realize I didn't have a college degree, so that wasn't going to happen. But they did have a thing called a SPO, which was Special Police Officer. So I figured, hey, I might qualify for that. I'm a security guard. And it's just a security guard for the CIA, right? Well, I talked to my friend. I said, you got any pull? You follow me so far?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll make sure we had connection. He said, let me check. I'll be back with you next week. He comes back next week and he said he talked to this guy who worked with the agency in their personnel department. And he said, hey, call this number. I said, really? Okay. So when I got off that weekend, Monday, I called the number and they said, yeah, we're hiring. You need to take a test. And they gave me a date for the test, and I thought it was something specially done for me. Come to find out, I showed up at this room and it was packed out with 100 people.
Oh, my.
And they were just these big 6-foot card tables, and they wanted us all to take a test. And so I took a test. And what was interesting is they pulled this TV out on a cart with a VCR. This will tell you what it was, 90s, right? And you want to know what they played on the TV?
What?
George Bush Sr., the old man.
Oh, yeah.
Given his 1,000 points of light speech. And they said, we want you to watch this and write an essay. So I knew that the agency was, globalist, right? New World Order. So I wrote something pro New World Order and pro Bush. Turned it in. I thought I had probably failed that test. Make a long story longer, I got a letter in the mail that says you passed the test, you're ready to go to the next phase. Well, I didn't get selected. And they rejected me ultimately. But what I learned, and the whole point of this, is that this Mormon that I knew, his name was Ron Hunter, went to church with a Mormon, and I confirmed that there's a lot of Mormons in the agency for a couple reasons. One is they don't drink. They don't even drink coffee, do they?
No.
And they're considered to be pretty honest people as far as people go.
Yeah.
So that's who the agency wants. And at least they know what they're getting. And so I can back you up with firsthand knowledge that that agency is filled with Mormons. But now, giving it back to you, what do you think about this president we had, presidential candidate? He may still be a senator from out west.
Mitt Romney?
Yeah, he was Mormon, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. We have a whole YouTube video called Throne of Fools. Not YouTube, it was a DVD. We were warning people, as bad as Obama was, because that's who he was running against.
Yes.
He would have been worse.
Oh my goodness.
Because the Mormons have a plan for America.
Okay, now
they
pick
believe
up
it's
there.
their destiny. Yeah.
Do you think that
they
are working against President Trump, possibly?
I wouldn't be a bit surprised, because even though they're, usually politically conservative, they're deeply involved. And most people don't know this, because they look at these Mormons and they look like, Norman Rockwell, squeaky clean, wonderful people, but yet at the higher levels, they are doing an incredible amount of child trafficking, of, horrible stuff, which I'm going to get into. But
okay,
I want that stepped on, and that's what Trump is doing. I mean, he's pulling in all these missing. I think the recent thing I saw was like they found 35,000 missing children that got lost under Biden.
Amazing.
And the figure I'm hearing now is that there was originally 450,000 missing children because of the partly, because of the the border policy and all that under Biden.
Yes.
And that's appalling. I mean, that's like a third of the state of Iowa, practically, missing children.
That's terrible.
And they're trying to find them and getting, counseling for them, because many of these kids are survivors of sex trafficking and all kinds of stuff. And the Mormons are doing that, and the Vatican is doing that.
God,
and yeah, I know. And I mean, I think of all those precious children whose lives have been ruined. I mean, obviously they can get healed if they come to Yeshua and get deliverance and all of that. But still, because see, that's the idea behind a lot of this, is they believe, and when I say they, I mean the really dark, bad guys that are at the top of the Vatican, at the top of the Mormon Church. Because yes, I could tell you stories about the Mormon Church especially, but they think that if they mess with these kids and get them so sexually messed up and bitter, and and you may have heard about this, I may have even talked about this on your show, they would actually, when you got like this little 4-year-old boy or girl, they'll have a guy dress up and so he looks like Jesus, a robe and long hair and a beard, and he'll come in and sodomize this child.
Oh, no.
And so the child will grow up thinking that Jesus hates them and that Jesus just wants to use them and then throw them away like, toilet paper. God, so they think that if they can do this to children, that those children, when they grow up, will be pretty much immune to evangelism, to getting born again and, saved.
Bro, that's horrific.
I mean, I'm sure that's true for a lot of them, because I'll tell you a related story. In a lot of places where I speak, a lot of witches show up. And I was at this one, I was doing ministry down in Australia, and I spoke at this major university in Adelaide. I can't think of the name of it anymore because it was like 20 years ago, and it was full of witches. And these witches, and most of them were, of course, girls, and they'd come up to me and they'd tell me that they were sexually molested as children. And they thought because of that, this male god, quote unquote, hated them, and he didn't care about them, and he let this happen to them. And so they just said, well, nuts to Christianity, I'm going to worship a goddess and serve the horn god and the mother goddess. And I tried to talk to them, but man, it is hard to witness to these people because they're so indoctrinated and they have bitterness in their hearts towards God and towards men, which is, again, psychologically, it's understandable.
Yes.
So it's a terrible thing they're doing. That's why, Yeshua said, if you mess with one of these little ones, it'd be better for you to have a millstone put on your neck and be thrown in the depths of the sea.
Yes.
And it's just terrible stuff. So anyhow, and the Mormons are involved in that. In spite of their, nice, squeaky clean image, excuse me, at the higher levels, it's just terrible stuff going on.
Oh, yeah, just total debauchery. And, of course, they believe when they die, they get their own planet with unlimited women for orgies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all of their hundreds of goddess wives. It's kind of like Islam, the same idea.
Right.
Anyhow, to move on, another whole level here with the Mormons in Utah. There is literally what they call the Mormon Mafia, and it runs Utah.
Really?
There's a reason why they call it the church state, because that's what it is. And to a lesser extent, Idaho, southern Idaho, and northern Arizona are so heavily Mormon, it's really frightening. And, they are involved in money laundering. They are involved in all kinds of stuff. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the Mormon church in Utah has its own police force.
No, I didn't know that.
It's called a church security system. And almost all of these people, they're former Secret Service. And we had some interaction with them.
Oh, my goodness.
When we were ministering in Utah, they would come and they would hassle us. And, they will arrest people. We had people that were, friends of the ministry, Ed Decker's ministry, and they would bring stuff to us that was top secret, and those people would get arrested.
Wow.
By the church, and they would get thrown in jail.
Wow. For
being a whatever you want to call it, a counterintelligence person against the inner workings of the Mormon church.
Amazing.
And right now, my sources are telling me that 80% of the finances in the world are being run through the Mormon church. They are doing money laundering big time, and the church is incredibly wealthy. I mean, last I heard, they have 13 million members, and in spite of being much smaller than the Roman Catholic Church, they are wealthier per capita than the Vatican.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's amazing.
And they have been also heavily investing for more than 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry, especially Eli Lilly.
Uh-oh.
And, and we all know where that's going, with all of this pharmakeia.
Right.
So beyond that, both of these groups, the Vatican and the Mormons, have large underground networks that are engaged in satanic abuse and the sacrifice of children. It's going on. It was going on back when I was a Mormon. And I think I may have told this story, but I'm going to share it again. When we went through the temple, which is a big deal, only about 1 in 10 Mormons is found worthy to go through the temple and, do the whole ritual endowment thing and all of that. And in the process of that, for reasons I don't want to get into at the moment, I've told it elsewhere, but we were allowed to go and visit one of the 12 apostles of the Mormon church. The temple president, who was the head of the Salt Lake Temple, said that we could go and visit with one of the 12 apostles. So they took us across the street they have tunnels under the Mormon church, the temple there, that network throughout the city.
Wow.
It's really kind of creepy. And anyhow, we went up there to the church office building and we met with Elder James Faust. That was the guy's name. He was at that time one of the 12 apostles. As far as I know, he's probably deceased by now. But anyway, and we told him that we were having like dreams of the Salt Lake Temple inner temple rituals. We were seeing all this in advance of actually going through the temple, because nobody is supposed to know what goes on in the temple. Now, this was in 1981. Since that time, several Christian ministers, like Chuck Sackett, he used to be a Mormon church temple worker. And
Wow.
he actually went in after he got born again, and he audio taped the whole temple ceremony. So now, literally for 40 years, it's been out there, but it was secret at that time. And we told this apostle about what we had seen. What we saw was this altar, beautiful white marble altar, upholstered satin brocade top, and all these people were standing around it wearing white robes with green aprons. And again, all this is supposed to be secret. And laying on the altar was this underage girl, naked. And they were all calling down and chanting and calling out, "Hail Lucifer." And we told this guy, Elder Faust, what we had seen in our dreams. And he said, "Well, I want to bear you my testimony that what you have said to me is true.
Wow.
And that Lucifer is the god of the Mormon temple.
Oh, my goodness.
And that if you want to move out to Salt Lake," he said, "I can tell that you are special people, and we can find a place for you in the service of the temple." Well, fortunately, we didn't do that, and I got born again, and we got out of that. But, that shows you, because this is one of the top, because in the Mormon church, you have this hierarchy where you've got the prophet and his 2 counselors, and you got the 12 apostles. So this guy was very high up in the church. And, that it just illustrates the depth of the evil that hides underneath this nice surface of the Mormon church. So just to be clear, the guy who is now the head of the Mormon church, because they have it's kind of a gerontocracy, if you know what I mean. You got the 12 apostles, and when the prophet dies, they're all old. I mean, most of them are like in their 50s or 60s or above. And when one of them dies, the next oldest guy gets to be the new prophet. That's how it works. And this guy, who's the current head of the church, he happens to be a doctor, and he has been accused by many people of multiple murders and rapes of children and the torturing of children.
Wow.
It's also been alleged, now remember, this fellow is a doctor, and he had, privileges at the major couple of hospitals that are in Salt Lake.
Right.
And that as a doctor, he was responsible for the deaths of the last few Mormon prophets.
Oh, wow.
So when these elderly men would come in, for whatever, he would arrange to kill them, because that would bump him up in the hierarchy to the point that he would end up being the prophet. So this is this deeply wicked guy who's the head of the Mormon church. There are also deep connections between the Mormon church and the U.S. government since the time of President Eisenhower. And that was like 70 years ago. The Secretary of Agriculture in Eisenhower's cabinet was Ezra Taft Benson. And Ezra Taft Benson is a Mormon, and he ended up eventually becoming a Mormon prophet. I think it was in the late 80s. It was after I got out of the church. And since that time, you can bet, I don't know about Trump and his cabinet now, but that in almost every cabinet of every administration, especially if they were Republicans, because Mormons tend to be staunch Republicans, they have cabinet members that are Mormons, always. And the other interesting thing is that for whatever reason, for many decades, the Mormon Church has been allowed to keep its financial records secret. The IRS can't get at it. And that's kind of remarkable when you think about it, because they are not a 501c3. And so they can get away with murder in terms of this kind of thing.
Literally. Now, before you jump to the next point,
sure.
I remember another detail. When you were over there in the tunnel system, didn't you encounter something paranormal in the tunnels?
Yeah, you could kind of say that. Yeah, we were taken by some people in the temple after we had this meeting with the temple president.
Yes.
They took us to this elevator, and we went down like about 2 floors, because what I was told, there was this lady named her name was Renee Higley, I think, if I'm remembering right. And she had been a Mormon, and she was, I think she was Danish. And they brought her over and paid her to translate the Book of Mormon and their various, evangelistic literature into the Danish language. And because of the secret nature of what she was doing, she had to live in the temple. And they have apartments, they have restaurants. I mean, you could just stay down there and never leave.
Amazing.
And they made her do that. And eventually she got saved. But she said while she was doing this for the church, there are at least 8 floors down, subterranean, below the ground level of the temple.
Wow.
So there's all kinds of stuff down there. And what happened with us is we were taken a couple of floors down to this passageway that goes across the street underneath, the street, across the street to the temple. And there was a security guard at the bottom of the elevator to kind of, escort us.
Right.
And he looked like your typical, security guy. But
right.
As we were walking with him, he kind of morphed. And right before our very eyes, he turned into this half-human, half-lizard-looking thing.
Wow.
He still had the uniform and the little police hat and the whole bit, but his face looked like a reptile.
Good grief.
And then when we got to across the street to the basement of the church office building, and he pushed the button, the elevator opened, and then all of a sudden he looked human again. Now, wow. I don't know, because of course at this time I was not a born-again Christian. I don't know if that was just something the Holy Spirit showed us, or if the guy just let his quote-unquote mask slip. I mean, who knows?
Right.
So anyway, then he went up the elevator. That's, I think, what you're referring to.
Yes. So I think the fact that you had the dream and God showed you the actual rituals that go on over there and who they're really worshiping, Lucifer, they wanted to bring you in and probably have you participate in those rituals. As an insight.
That was the plan.
My goodness.
But fortunately, we couldn't afford to move out to Salt Lake, and then, of course, I got born again.
Yes.
And so that was the end of that.
That is amazing. So there's a big, at least 8 floors or more underground complex over there, and this is all out at Salt Lake City?
Yes. Now, there's a whole nother story, which I don't know if we want to get into or not, about the Washington, D.C. temple.
Oh, tell me about that.
Well, and this gets back to the government thing.
Okay.
Because the Mormon Church believes, and this is in their documents, their sacred writings, that at some point, Joseph Smith prophesied that at some point the Mormons believe the Constitution is a divine document, just like the Bible, just like the Book of Mormon. They think it sort of came down from heaven. And they were told by Joseph Smith that there would come a time when the Constitution would hang by a thread, and that the Mormon elders would save the Constitution, and, and this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And that the Mormon elders would save the Constitution, and that, and this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And that, and this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And that, and this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And this is the expression, one mighty and strong, would stand before the throne. And this is the expression, one mighty and strong, wo would come along and become the president of the United States and save the Constitution. So for as long as there have been Mormons in the government, their goal was to get a Mormon president. And what I was told, because when I was a Mormon, the nearest Mormon temple that we could go to, was in Washington, D.C., this Silver Springs, Maryland. And it's a gorgeous temple. It's made entirely, the outer part of it is marble. It just gleams in the sun.
Yes.
And anyway, what happened was we were in the temple doing temple work, and I was sitting there waiting to do something or other in one of the hallways, and this guy comes up to me and we're talking, and he says, well, you know, I'm a Secret Service agent. And I said,
Really?
oh, wow, you know, very impressed. And he said, let me tell you something most people don't know about. There is a top floor in this temple that nobody is allowed to go to without a special security clearance. And in that top floor is an exact replica of the Oval Office.
Amazing.
And that they believe that when this crisis occurs and the Constitution will hang by a thread, that the new Mormon president will govern the country not from the White House, but from this Washington, D.C. temple.
Amazing.
And what's interesting is if you look, and because you can see if you go to DuckDuckGo or whatever and look it up, pictures.
Yes.
If you look at an aerial photo of the temple, you will see that in the center on the roof, there's this huge dome. And this guy told me that dome has all this telemetry equipment, antennas and all this kind of stuff, so that he could sit, in his fake Oval Office and have access to, all the, military stuff and whatnot.
Sure.
That the president of the United States would have if he was in the White House. And he said it is such a powerful, this fellow was telling me this. This is such a powerful array of equipment that they've had to have an agreement with both the airports there that they would what do you want to call it? Have the air traffic circumvent the airspace over the temple because it would interfere with the aircraft's telemetry.
Amazing.
And now, mind you, this was in probably 1983. And I have no doubt that it's still, sitting there waiting for the big moment. So that just showed they have ambitions, and that's why Romney, who of course turned out to be a real rhino.
Right.
The guy is not in any sense of the word a conservative, and he's descended from polygamists. His uncle was Marion G. Romney was one of the top people in the Mormon church. So this guy is a huge mover and shaker within the church. Okay, now, since the 1990s, people like Ed Decker and I and others have been working to expose the dark underbelly of the Mormon church, and especially in Utah. And Ed, and with my help, we worked together on this along with Pat Matriciana of Jeremiah Films. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but they're the ones that did the God Makers.
Oh, yes.
And a whole bunch of other really excellent Christian films. And anyhow, we put together this film called God Makers 2, where we document the fact that the guy at that time, who was the Mormon prophet, the head of the church, Gordon B. Hinckley, was involved with pedophilia, with, he especially liked having sex with little African-American children, and then they'd vanish. The children would just be taken away.
Good grief.
And there's a huge amount of satanic ritual abuse reported in Salt Lake City, even to the point that the presiding bishop of the Mormon church, this is in 1991, his name was Glenn Pace, and he, again, very high up in the church hierarchy. He did a whole report about how thousands of children were being molested by Mormons, and they needed to address this. And to their credit, they at least brought this out into the open, unlike the Vatican, which kept it hidden really up until, I think it was the turn of the millennium, when this whole priest pedophilia thing started up.
Brother William, are they taking the children after they have abused them, and are they sacrificing them and murdering them on the altars to Lucifer?
That's what's being alleged. I mean, this is obviously hearsay, but there are women who were, at the time, they were prostitutes, and they were hired by people in the church to come in and in one of these lower levels underneath the temple. They would be made to participate in satanic rituals, and they would see the prophet sitting up there on a throne, you know, in his temple outfit, and behind him was a wall of skulls of children. This is what several different witnesses have said this.
Wow.
And, you know, just terrible stuff. And I've talked about some of this, and I don't want to go into too much stuff with it, but the problem is that now this monstrous organization, which has devoured the lives, I believe, of thousands of children over the last, you know, few decades, if not before, they are now lining up with the Mormon church. Pardon me, with the Vatican. And this is really dangerous because, you know, in both churches, the reason they're doing this stuff is, number one, they believe that by, you know, torturing children, raping children, killing children, they can amass huge amounts of spiritual power for themselves and for the devil. Because, like I love to remind people, the devil really has no power except what we human beings give him. And the devil feeds on blood, he feeds on terror and murder. And that's what they're providing. Now, the second thing is they love, and I already alluded to this, they love to destroy the innocence of children. And of course, I know you know from your deliverance, you know, ministry, that if you rape a child, especially if obviously anybody that rapes a child is going to be full of demons, that those demons are going to go into the child. And so these poor children are sexually traumatized, but they're also demonized.
Yes.
And then finally, they want to accrue huge amounts of financial and political influence through blackmail and terror. And I really do believe, you know, bringing this up to the present day, that's part of the reason why we're having all of this shilly-shallying around with this Epstein thing, is because so many powerful people are implicated.
Yes.
And the CIA, again, lots of Mormons in the CIA, they are using this to blackmail congressmen and senators. And if this is all exposed, they'll lose this huge amount of leverage that they have over the leaders of our country. So here's what happened. We did a newsletter back in 2019, documenting the fact that there was a high-level private meeting that took place in Abu Dhabi between Pope Francis and two LDS apostles, Elders Garrett and Elder Gong. And this was during some big interfaith meeting. But anyhow, they met privately with the Pope. There's photos of this. And the Pope granted them permission to build a large Mormon temple in northeast Rome. He allowed them to buy. And again, the Mormon church is wealthy beyond anybody's wildest dreams. He allowed them permission to build to have this 15-acre complex. I don't think it's done yet, because building one of these temples is a huge undertaking. And again, like I mentioned, this is remarkable because for most of its 100 and whatever it is, 70 years of history as the Mormon Church, they have said that the Vatican is the great whore of all the earth. So they've, as it were, gotten into bed with a whore. Now, why? Why is this going on? Well, I don't know. Have you ever heard of Kenneth Arnett?
No, sir.
Okay, well, he's been defrocked, but he was a minister, I believe, in the United Church of Canada, which is kind of like the Anglican Church in England. And he discovered horrible things being done by the crown, by Queen Elizabeth, to children in Canada that was being covered up.
Oh, wow.
Like there were, there were, I guess you'd call them Native Canadian, that were on, what, like, I guess they'd be called reservations.
Right.
And the Canadian government, under the auspices of the royal family, set up these schools for Native children, which sounds admirable, but it turns out they were less schools and more concentration camps. And there were literally hundreds, if not thousands, of these children that just vanished, Native Canadian children. And they tried to expose it. This guy, this Kevin Arnett, bless his heart, unfortunately, I don't think the guy even, believes in Christ anymore. He just got so disillusioned with his own church, and you know how that can happen. But he's a good man, and he's done all sorts of work. And he's learned, and we've heard about this too, because we've ministered to many people who were both abused by Mormon officials and also who were horribly abused by Vatican officials, cardinals, etc. And there's this organization within the deep bowels of the Vatican that's called the 9th Circle. Okay. Now, I don't know, have you ever read Dante's Inferno?
Yes, we're still here. We didn't lose you.
Okay. Well, that was a book. It was like a poem, an epic poem. It was written by Alighieri Dante.
Yes.
Centuries ago, and he kind of created a whole mythology of hell, which is not necessarily biblical.
Dante's Inferno.
At the bottom, he had this vision of like a funnel where it went down and down and down for 9 circles.
Okay.
And at the very bottom was the 9th circle, and that's where the most evil people were kept, were condemned for all eternity. And among them was Judas, and at the very bottom of this funnel thing was Satan himself, trapped. He envisioned him being trapped in a giant lake of ice.
Wow.
And halfway, in ice and then fire on top of him, which obviously sounds horrible. But anyway, so the Vatican took this symbol of the 9th circle, and it has become their organization. Since they and I think you probably heard me talk about this before, but in 1962, under Pope John the 23rd, they enthroned Lucifer as the head of the Vatican.
Oh, wow. Yes.
A formal ceremony was done. Father Malachi Martin, who was a former Jesuit priest,
yes,
documented that. There's a lot of audio and video recordings of him discussing this stuff. He passed away. I think he had a stroke in the 1990s. But anyway, so this 9th circle is what they use to consolidate their spiritual power. And 9th circle rituals, now this is the Vatican, involves satanic ritual abuse, child sacrifice, sexual sacrifice, and black sexual magic. It involves the eating of children and the shared belief that through doing all of this, all these horrible things, that these guys can live forever. That's what they believe. So,
these guys are sick.
According to multiple eyewitness testimony, that both this Mr. Arnett has gathered, and to a lesser extent that we have gathered, all the recent popes have been part of this ninth circle since 1962. And in fact, it is being alleged again that if you want to be a bishop in the Catholic Church, because the way the Catholic Church works, you got all of these priests. If you're going to be a bishop, only the Pope can permit somebody to become a bishop. And almost supposedly, I can't speak to this, but from what the testimony is of these people, if you become a bishop, you become a member of the ninth circle. So all of these nice bishops that you see are actually involved in this horrible stuff. And in 1922, the Vatican issued this edict, which is called Crimen Solicitationes. And what that means is in that thing, it was a doctrine that was promulgated that if parents, or anybody else for that matter, report on the fact that their child had been sexually molested by a priest, or a bishop for that matter, that was a mortal sin to report a priest fooling around with your little boy or little girl. And I don't know how much you know about Catholicism, but a mortal sin is the most serious sin that you can commit, and it means that if you die in that state, you go straight to hell.
Oh, my goodness.
So they literally had a thing in place that really profoundly discouraged Catholic laity, or anybody else for that matter, from reporting the abuse of their children by priests. And this was not really done away with until the pontificate of Francis, Pope Francis, who was the previous pope before this new guy.
Really?
Yeah. So they had a whole institutional thing to cover things up. And of course, I think you know the story. I mean, what they would do is if a priest was caught fooling around with children, they would move the priest to a different, diocese or a different parish.
Right.
And unless somebody finally had the nerve to go to the police, these priests would get away with close to murder over and over and over again. And this has only very recently been reformed. That's why Ratzinger, who was the Pope before Francis, I think he was Benedict XV was his title, he literally had to spend the last few years of his life, he had to resign, and he couldn't leave the Vatican because there's a warrant for his arrest.
Oh, boy.
For molesting children.
Okay.
And, it was issued by the International Criminal Court. And it is alleged that this new guy, who's an American pope from Chicago, I couldn't tell you his name offhand, but he's called, I think, Leo XIV, that he is a horrible person who's been doing this stuff for years down in Peru.
Wow.
Because he was some kind of prelate down there in Peru, which is, of course, a Catholic country. And right. Children are vanishing left and right under this guy's jurisdiction. So here's the problem. When the Vatican and the LDS Church get together, joining themselves, and I think that's partly why they are building this temple in Rome, is because this Kenneth Arnett fellow, bless his heart, he has created a network all over Canada and less pervasive, but all over Europe and Italy, of people that are trying to find when they're doing these rituals and go and have the police raid the ritual. And there are different churches that have been shut down in Rome because police would go in there and they'd found all these horrible things being done. And so now because the Vatican has this temple, pardon me, the Mormon Church has this temple, which I don't think it's been built yet, but I didn't have time to check that out, that would be another place that they could go and do these ninth circle rituals. So here's the problem. And I know a lot of this from back when I was in Satanism. They have this belief there is what is called the Qliphothic tree of life. And this is I'm assuming you're familiar with the Kabbalah. And the Kabbalah has this tree of life,
right?
The Etz Chaim, which is kind of their symbol, and it's supposedly good. But this is like a dark mirror image of it. It's called the Qliphot, which is a Hebrew word that means either husks or shells or harlots. Very evil. And they believe, that there's 3 pillars in this tree of death, just like there's 3 pillars in the tree of life. And one of these pillars, the most ancient one, is the Vatican. And the second most ancient pillar is the Freemasonic thing, which is funny because, again, the Vatican, until very recently, like within the last 20 or 30 years, has been anti-Masonry. I mean, when I was a young person, if you were a Catholic and you joined the Masonic Lodge, it was automatic excommunication. But now, all sorts of Catholics are Masons. So you've got one pillar is the Vatican, one pillar is the Freemasonic order, which is also doing satanic ritual abuse, as I'm sure you know. And then the third pillar now that's joined it is the LDS Church. So they believe that they are creating a dark interdimensional equation involving the most dangerous satanic child sacrifice networks coming together. And they need to do this in order to complete the architecture of this Qliphothic tree of death. And it is believed by the leadership, and again, not the average Mason, not the average Mormon, that by uniting these 3 strands of evil, that the manifestation of the dark middle pillar of this Qliphothic tree can be realized as the Antichrist. That's what they're trying to do.
It makes sense. They want to usher the Antichrist in, don't they?
Yes. And then again, in satanic theology, they believe that all of these poor kids that were abused, and they think that they will grow up and hate God, will not be able to get born again, that these children will be part of an end-time army that will be ruled by the devil, and that when Christ comes back, because they've read the book of Revelation, they know he's coming. The devil knows the book of Revelation better than any human being. That they will have their army, and it will be bigger than Christ and his army of the saints. And so they think that they can defeat heaven's army and enthrone Lucifer on the throne of heaven. That's their weird eschatology.
These people are sick. Now, if you're just joining us, we're live with Dr. William Schnoebelen. This is a live program. No wonder the enemy was trying to stop us, because Brother William is blowing the cover on this cabal. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some connections with Jeffrey Epstein in these groups.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it a bit. Because, I mean, it's widely believed now that he was a CIA asset.
Right.
And, you know, I know he was Jewish. He wasn't, you know, a Mormon or a Mason. I don't know if he's a Mason or not. But the point is, he was being used to create this huge network of, I guess, over 1,000 people that were being sexually molested, barely, you know, pubescent girls, to blackmail, again, members of Congress, people in power. And it's just totally evil.
I also heard from Jeffrey Nyquist that Ghislaine Maxwell's father, who fell off the back of a yacht and died. I guess they didn't find his body. I don't know. Maybe they recovered, but he was dead. Jeffrey said that he had deep ties to Russia. So he believed he also had Russian ties. And we got the CIA, and we know Muslims, not Muslims, but the Mormons, rather, they're heavily embedded in the CIA. So there's rumors of underground complexes over there on his main island, St. James Island.
We mean the Epstein Island, yeah.
Yes. We may not know the extent of it because there was a number of bulldozers that were over there apparently sealing off areas. And so maybe if you had like LIDAR, ground penetrating radar, you could probably still see the corridors under there. I bet you there was something underground.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
And, you know, for ritual abuse of these children.
Yes. And I mean, these are sins that just cry out to heaven for vengeance.
Oh, yes.
It's terrible. And, you know, as we kind of bring this to a close, I would just say Christians need to understand that this stuff is going on. And especially be wary of, you know, the Vatican, of the Roman Catholics organization and the Mormon organization, because both of these groups are deeply dangerous on every level.
Yes.
Both spiritually, because their doctrines will take you straight to hell, you know. But on the other hand, they desperately need to pull in children, pull in young adults, because they believe, again, in the defiling of innocence. And so keep your children away from the Catholic Church, keep your children away from the Mormon Church.
Yes.
Even though, again, they look really good on the outside. But, you know, like Yeshua said of the Pharisees, they're whited sepulchres, but they are full of rottenness and dead men's bones.
Now, let me ask you a question while we're on this subject. What about the Freemasons at the highest level?
Kind of the same thing. I mean, you know, I would say at least a third of the people that we ministered to for deliverance were victims of Masonic ritual abuse.
Yes.
And that they were being abused in Masonic temples. They take these children, because what people need to realize is that there's so much resemblance between the Mormon temple and the Mormon temple rituals and the Freemasonic rituals.
Okay.
Because Joseph Smith became a Freemason, I think it was in 1842, and once he was made a Master Mason, he basically went and copied the Masonic ritual and tweaked it and made it the temple ritual.
Okay.
So they built this temple in Nauvoo, Illinois, which was Mormonism's last stand in Eastern America before the people ran them out of town and they had to flee to Utah. And he basically plagiarized the temple ritual. So in a Masonic temple, and again, I was a high-level Freemason, there's this altar that's very much like the altar in the celestial room of a Mormon temple. And see, there's 3 levels in the Mormon temple. There's the celestial room, which represents the lone and dreary world. Then there's a terrestrial room, which is the next floor up. That represents the paradisical glory. And then the celestial room, which represents the kingdom of heaven, where Heavenly Father is. This is what they believe. So the same altar is in the Masonic temple, as you will see in the celestial room. And on that altar, and again, this is a testimony of literally dozens of people, that when they were children, they would be laid on this altar on top of the Bible. Now think of this, because every Masonic temple has a big, altar Bible laid open on this altar with a square and compass, King James Bible. And they would take this child, strip them naked, put them on the King James Bible, and do all manner of defilement to them.
God have mercy.
I mean, can you think of anything more satanic than that?
These are sickos.
Yeah.
I ran across a man a number of years ago. His name was Kelvin McCracken. He was from up around Scotland area, and he was the worshipful master of the lodge. He was a third degree. For his lodge, I would have thought he'd been higher level, but he was third degree. And he found Jesus and got out of it, renounced it all, and came on and did a couple programs. I don't know if he's alive now or not, but he told me that irregardless of what level you are, by virtue of the fact, even at the lower degrees, like first, second, third, because you come in and you basically submit yourself to the temple and the rituals, you're compromised and you're cursed, even though you don't realize until you get to the higher levels that they're worshiping Satan. And he said, I said, who's at the top? Now he mentioned a guy or a name called Ahura Mazda, aka Prince of Persia. I want to ask you about that. Have you ever run across that name?
Well, yes, of course. That is the name of the good god of the Zoroastrian religion.
Really?
Which is Ahura now Mazda. Called, okay. See, Albert Pike, who I'm sure you're familiar with.
Sure.
He was like the, kind of like the grand poobah of Scottish Rite Masonry in the 19th century.
Yes.
And he wrote this huge book called Morals and Dogma, which is kind of like the Bible of the Scottish Rite. And in there, he makes it very clear that what he believed and what he taught to all of his people under him, the Scottish Rite Masons, in this Zoroastrian religion, that there is a good god named Ahura Mazda and a bad god named Ahriman.
Oh.
And today, it's like what they call dualism. So unlike Christianity, or for that matter, Judaism, they believe that the evil God is equal to the good God. Where we understand that the devil is just a mere creature.
Yes.
And that, God is infinitely more powerful than he is. Well, in any event, in this book, Albert Pike explains that the good God, the Ahura Mazda, is Lucifer. And he said the bad God, who wants to restrict our freedom and our liberty, he called him Adonai, which is, of course, one of the Hebrew titles for God in the Old Testament.
Yes.
So he was basically flipping the whole thing and saying that the God of Masonry is the light bearer, because everything in Masonry is about light. When you're kneeling at the altar and you swear the oath and you're asked, what do you most desire? And you're supposed to say light. And it's light and all the way up. But of course, it's the light of Lucifer. It's not the light of God. So that's what they're talking about.
Who do you think is who's the most powerful Freemason on the planet right now? Would it be the royal family?
That's hard to say. The funny thing is I was told by a guy who was very close to the royal family named Mick Oxley. He is a born-again Christian who used to be a Mason and a Muslim.
Wow.
Because Muslims can be Masons. And this fellow was actually an officer in the Royal Air Force.
Yes.
And he actually flew General Montgomery all over North Africa. He was a great British general. And anyway, because he was stationed in Cairo,
yes,
when he became a Mason, he was obligated on the Quran. In other words, he, instead of taking the oath like in America, you would take your oath on the Bible. In Egypt, you would take your oath on the Quran. And he would say that this is very much the case. And he said that as far as anybody knew, Prince Charles was not a Freemason. Now, this was many years ago, because this Mick Oxley guy has gone home to the Lord. But
right.
So we don't know for sure, but we do know that by reason of his office, Charles is the head of the Order of the Garter.
Yes.
The Order of the Star and the Garter. And that is a very satanic witchcraft organization. And one of his relatives, the Duke of Warwick, is the Grand Master of all witches and Satanists in England.
Oh, my goodness.
So, and of course, to get back to this
and then
Kenneth Arnott guy in Canada,
yes.
I mean, it is, all sorts of these native people, they, hold on, I'm sorry.
No, take your time, and I'll insert there. I think, is it Prince Edward? There's another guy. I think he's head of all Freemasons over in the UK. One of the royal family.
Yeah.
The truth sets us free. My $1 million question is, how do we do damage to these guys and their agenda? And I think it's doing what we're doing right now.
Yes. Well, number one, prayer and warfare. Number two, Ephesians 5:11, expose the darkness. Let people know what's going on. And,
expose the darkness. We pause there for a second. And we got King Charles III.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a friend, Tim Cohen, the Antichrist and a Cup of Tea. He's he's convinced that King Charles III is the Antichrist. Now, I didn't know anything about the Garter until he was on the show last week. And now it's coming back to me, the Order of the Garter, that is satanic. Who is that position, though, that's head of all the witches? What was that guy's name?
The Duke of Warwick.
I never heard of him. Wow.
Well, that's just it. Most of these people, they're like shirt-tail relatives of the royal family. Some of them have gotten there just by dint of their service to the kingdom, so to speak. But you got to realize that, like, it is alleged that over in Canada, and also because both Canada and Australia are part of the British Commonwealth.
Oh, right.
That the Queen was over there, I don't know how many years ago, and that all of these children just vanished while she was there.
Wow. Hundreds
of them. And later on they found these different little schools, quote unquote. They found many, many graves, unmarked graves, that were of children.
Oh,
and then now just last year, someone came along and debunked it and said that wasn't true, even though there are literally dozens of Native Canadian people.
Oh, yes.
Mostly very, reputable, respectable individuals who say, no, it is true, and you can't cover it up.
It is.
So the Queen of England might very well, the Queen of England back in the day, and I couldn't tell you how many years ago this was, but she was probably, who knows, eating these children. I don't know. You see these sweet pictures of this sweet little old lady, the Queen and blah, blah, blah. And I just want to throw up. I mean, pardon me. But, this is one of the oldest, largest criminal organizations in the world. The royal
King
family.
Charles III admits to being a descendant of Vlad the Impaler. Owned some of the castles that Vlad owned. That guy was barbaric. Yeah. Did you ever come across the trail of a guy named Jimmy Savile?
Oh, sure.
This guy had to have been a Satanist too.
Well, he was certainly a pervert and a child molester.
For sure.
And he was close friends with Charles.
Yes.
They knighted the guy.
They
made him a knight of the British Empire because he was rich. I mean, he was some sort of media personality, and he gave all this money to these children's hospitals, and he would go to these children's hospitals, and some of the children would vanish.
Good grief.
God have mercy.
We had to have had dark cabal ties. And, if you jump back over to America and you've got the Church of Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard, who was,
he was a disciple of Crowley.
Crowley and Jack Parsons.
Yep.
Who was a disciple of Crowley. It all dovetails back to devil worship. And you mentioned the pilot from Montgomery having been a Muslim. What, Nick Oxley?
Yes.
I've heard it said that King Charles III is also Muslim. While at the same time...
Well, I know he was made an imam, which is like a clergyman within the Islamic faith.
I think he loves Islam.
That's, what's his name? This Tim Cohen fellow.
Tim Cohen,
mentioned?
yeah.
Yeah, he documents that.
And he begrudgingly... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, so Tim's assessment is that you got this guy who's obviously a very powerful world figure,
yes,
who's the head of the Church of England, which is, a large Christian denomination, sort of. Well, it's not really Christian anymore, but anyway. And he's also a clergyman within Islam.
And
so
reportedly,
he's thinking that somehow,
and reportedly linked back to one of the tribes of Israel. So he's got...
Well, yeah, they call... again, Tim talks about this, and I couldn't give you, what the documentation on it is, but he was talking about how when Charles, years ago, visited Israel, that the rabbis were hailing him as the son of David. They were literally, and I don't know if these were, the real serious Orthodox rabbis, or if they were more, liberal, conservative rabbis or reformed rabbis, but whoever they were bigwigs within the rabbinical scene. They regarded Charles as a messianic figure, as
kind of punches all the tickets.
And I know that is alleged. I think it's very sketchy, but it's alleged that Charles is a direct descendant of King David. Now, so they would say, okay, you got the Muslims, you got the Christians, you got the Jews. And in, Tim's thesis, which I think is, I'm not sure I buy everything he's saying, but I think he makes a very good case that Charles could somehow be a figure who would unite, these three religious figures. And then you got the problem with his son, Prince William, who has made it very clear he doesn't even believe in Christianity.
Really?
Yeah, he doesn't. Mary was telling me about this the other day. She, because there's all of this stuff that, almost every day we get some fool thing or other, about the royal family. Everybody's thrilled about the royal family. I just want to barf.
Right.
But anyway, and it was talking about how he said before, a couple of years ago, when he went through his coronation, he's supposed to be given the title of the defender of the faith as the head of the Church of England.
Right.
And he didn't want that. He wanted to be the defender of faith. And of course, that's this perennialism, the idea that all religions are the same.
Sure.
And of course, that's what Masons teach, that all religions are equal. That's what Charles is. And his son is even worse.
Oh, that's terrible.
We see now that, it looks like Charles might not be long for this world.
Well, yeah.
They're kind of, there's rumbles even like with his son and his wife, Catherine, whatever her name is, that they're getting ready to be king and queen.
He had
because,
cancer.
He has cancer and, he's 76 years old and apparently not in good health. So he might just have this brief reign and then, kick off and be replaced by King William, who's, not at all a Christian in any sense of the word. He's a New Ager.
Yes.
He's really into, the whole green, climate change, green gospel garbage,
Yes.
So I mean, England is doomed.
Oh,
I mean, between the fact that, it's being overrun with, Muslims and whatnot, on the one hand, and the fact that, the leadership of the country is a bunch of, at best, fools. I mean, they've let thousands and thousands of people that don't believe in Christ into their country. And it's not that big a country. I mean, if you've got, I don't know how many, last I heard there were like, 30 or 40 million Britons. And if you bring in hundreds of thousands of these people, I mean, it's the whole country is going to go down the toilet, both spiritually, economically, and, whatever.
Do you think this is directly related to a judgment of God on the nation for turning their back on God?
Obviously, yes. I think that's true, because if you look at what, and I know there's many good Christians in England, really solid Bible-believing Christians. We were invited over to come over there and minister back in 2006. Wonderful Christians. But even then they were saying there's all these empty churches that are being turned into mosques.
Right.
And it's probably much worse now.
Now that's
because,
an
of course,
right
these different groups like, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, they all have bazillions of dollars from oil, and they can go over to Britain or wherever and build mosques all over. There's more mosques now, I've read, than there are active Christian churches in England.
And look at Bulgaria. More mosque minarets and churches over there. I had a friend whose church was burnt down. I mean, it's becoming ubiquitous because they have a lot of money to spread around. Before I forget, an offshoot of Freemasonry is the group, is it the Shriners, whose symbol is the crescent moon of Islam?
Yeah, the whole shrine thing. And we have a couple of YouTube videos about the shrine. And the whole mythos behind the rituals of the shrine is based on Islam. And when you become a Shriner, and I was a Shriner, you swear an oath, a blood-curdling oath, I might add.
Wow. With
your hands on the Quran, not the Bible. And it's really demonic. I mean, the shrine, we could do a whole show just on the shrine. It is so evil.
Oh, I want you to do a show on that and expose that. Now, for people that have been involved in it or their ancestors have, and I know you expose these different groups, have you put together any material on how to be free of the curses and get any deliverance as it specifically relates to Freemasonry and Shriners?
Yes. I think in our book, Blood on the Doorpost, but also hopefully soon on our website.
Oh, good.
We used to have our deliverance procedure. And in there, I mean, I know you probably have a little different methodology, and that's fine, but we go through 4 levels, and we go through generational sin, then we go through religious sins.
Oh.
And, repenting of any past involvement in whatever you might have been into. And then we list, like the strong men of Masonry, the strong men of Mormonism, the strong men of the Vatican, the strong men of Islam, Wicca, Satanism, etc. It's all there.
Oh, okay. So which books do we order? Because I need to get that.
Well, it's Blood on the Doorpost.
Okay.
And if you want, Shannon, I can just email you, because, again, right now we're kind of betwixt and between, but I can email you the PDF file of our deliverance procedure.
Listen, I would be honored to have it for my own knowledge.
Sure.
And, if people wanted to order that from you or get any of the materials, what's the best way to contact you in the ministry?
Well, it's our website's withOneAccord.org, all lowercase, and on there, and of course our email is sneblen@gmail.com. Because right now the contact mechanism on our website has also been tampered with.
Okay.
So it just, it's a mess, and we're trying to get it sorted out.
Now, how can people support your work?
Well, at least the PayPal link still works on our website, and we also do Zelle, which is there on our website. We are so overwhelmed with ministry, Brother Shannon. I've been trying to look into other, payment venues and things like that.
Cash App. Look at that one next.
Okay, will do.
That's definitely one to get.
But yeah, you can donate through PayPal.
Okay.
You can donate through Zelle, or you can, send us a check.
What is your mailing address there?
That would be 3500 Dodge Street, like the car, Suite 205, number 411, in Dubuque, Iowa. That's DUBUQUE, and the zip code is 52003.
Now,
and I do have to get going.
Oh, before we close,
yes,
give me your itinerary for your podcast. When do you broadcast and where?
Well, we try and get a YouTube video out every week.
What is your channel on YouTube?
It's just called, I think it's called Dr. William Schnoebelen.
Oh, okay, that's simple. Okay, I'll find it and put a link in the notes. And
we now have nearly 300 videos up.
Oh, that's great. Hey, I want to thank you for coming on. This is well worth pushing through for the information we got. I'll cut the audio and get you a copy. This is a good one. What shall we title this for the archive?
I would maybe something like, Mormons are entering the 9th circle of hell.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Hey, before you go, would you look at your schedule and see if you got any dates in August?
I'm sure I would, and I will get back to you on that. Yeah.
Find me one date a month. It would be an honor to have you on. And you want to close us in prayer?
Sure. Lord God Almighty, thank you for enabling us to do this ministry. Thank you for helping us get through the tech challenges. We just pray that the people that hear this video would be educated and would understand the dangers of these cults, and to also understand that if they happen to be survivors of some sort of child sexual abuse or even satanic abuse, that Christ can heal them, that Christ can set them free into a life of joy and freedom in Him. Father, we pray that everybody that hears this broadcast would be quickened in their hearts to pray for revival, to pray that these works of darkness would be exposed on every possible level, and that they would also pray for us in the work of our ministry and pray for Shannon and his ministry. Thank you, Father, for Shannon. Please bless him and his family. And we give you all the praise and all the glory in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
My friend, thank you for coming on, an honor. And yes, I would love to have a copy of that PDF when you get some time. We'll see you soon.
Yes.
Thank you, brother.
You bet.
God bless you.